I'd like to call the meeting to order tonight. And at this time, would ask Mr. Gentry if he would to ask blessings upon this meeting.
Pray with me. Merciful God, God of all creation, God of the sunshine, God of the rain, even God of the storms, we come to you the only way we can, Lord, and that's just as we are, with all of our personalities, all of our afflictions, all of our preferences, all of our sins. And Father, we lay them at your feet, even at the cross of Jesus, that you may, as you in your word, remind us that you take them and cast them into the sea and remember them no more. Lord, we thank you for each person who is here. We thank you for who they stand for, which is our children, our schools, and Lord, for their families as well. Lord, we pray that you would invoke your wisdom, your love, your insight, and most of all, an affirming of accordance and agreement that we're all here for the same purpose. Ask a blessing on our chair as he leads us, and that when we have left this place in a little while, that we would have left our schools in better condition than they were in when we came in. And we ask this in the precious name of Jesus our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Okay, at this time, can we have a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Can we have a motion for, I don't think there was any minutes from the last, so there would not be any need for any approval of minutes. This time, a couple announcements. Mr. Smith is on his way. Mr. Dwayne, Miss Brenda is not here. I talked with her earlier today. She's another proud grandmother. She's at the hospital with her daughter, so she's got a good reason for not being here tonight. But that's where Miss Brenda Furby's at. Like to at this time welcome Ms. Lois Tain DeFries, our intern superintendent, who's with us tonight and presiding over this meeting, along with myself. And as you see, folks, the agenda is very short. There was quite a few things in personnel we needed to take care of as far as teachers and teacher assistants and other people getting employed and not wait until our next meeting. And that was one of the main reasons for calling this meeting tonight. And there, right after this, we'll adjourn and we will go into a finance committee meeting. So first item on the agenda is athletics, Mr. Jerome Hunt.
Good evening, Superintendent DeFries, Chairman Lowry, Board of Directors. I'm here this evening to present our athletic plan, our restart plan, for the schools of Robertson County, with the permission of Superintendent DeFries. Right now, we plan on starting our workouts back on Monday, September 21st. Let me be very clear. These workouts are voluntary. They're voluntary. They are not mandated by the public schools of Robertson County. They're not mandated by either school coach, AD. They are voluntary. If a student or parent does not feel comfortable doing the workouts, that's okay. Nothing will be held against them. The High School Athletic Association does not allow off-season workouts to be mandated. Their saying is always open to all, required of none. So again, they are voluntary. You have a packet there in front of you that says Robertson County off-season phase 2 workouts. And I'll try to be as brief as I can as I go over this. But if you look at the first page there, it says, starting September 21st, there'll be red groups, black groups, and again, it's optional. Red group is on the left there, the black group is on the right. Off-season conditioning workouts will be 90 minutes, and that is non-negotiable, and that's directly from the High School Athletic Association. The red groups will work out on Monday, Wednesday. The black groups will work out on Tuesday, Thursday. Now, those groups can flip-flop if the coaches and AD see fit, whatever's best for their particular school. If you look down at the bottom, we have staggered starts for each sport to come in and start doing workouts. September 21st, you have volleyball and cross-country. The following week on the 28th will be women's and men's basketball, followed by football, softball, men's soccer on October the 5th. Then you get down to women's soccer, baseball, both tennis teams on October 12th. And then you get to the final two teams with track and wrestling. Cheerleaders, we left cheerleaders up to the discretion of the AD and the principal at the school. Cheerleaders practice in different areas around school, and they know what's the best fit for their school with the cheerleaders. So we left that up to them. Over in the general notes, weight rooms and mat rooms can be opened in phase 2.5. So we will have our weight rooms open 4 days a week. So the athlete could actually practice basketball on Monday and go lift weights on Tuesday. Again, those workouts are still limited to 90 minutes in the weight room also. In the mat room with wrestling, there is no physical contact whatsoever. That's just skills and conditioning. It's basically all it is. Also, if you look at the teams, there's a date in parentheses. That is what we call their live dates. For instance, volleyball has October the 5th next to it. So volleyball season actually starts November the 4th. So on October the 5th, they'll be able to start going 4 days a week instead of 2 days a week. That's what we're considering live. And so we feel like this is a great plan for us. We think it's going to work out great. Already met with all the high school ADs. The ADs have met with the coaches. We've got everything in place. If you look at that second sheet, it talks about the COVID plan. And these are some of the things that we're doing to make sure that we keep our athletes safe once they get on campus. We actually start in the parking lot. When they come into the parking lot, the park, we want them to park every other space. Social distance, even in the vehicles. There'll be a check-in station every day where they'll get the temperature checked. They'll answer the COVID questions. Coaches have to do that also, not just the players. They should arrive 15 minutes before workouts and leave immediately after. No hanging out after workouts. Get in your car and leave. You have to have a current physical on file. There is an initial screening form that comes from the High School Athletic Association that every athlete has to complete before they can work out. And that form is actually online in our Planet HS. That's the company that does all of our online athletic forms. All our athletes are aware of Planet HS. The governor, in phase 2.5, can have 50 players outside, 25 inside. Now that 50 includes the coaches, the trainers, the managers. All that's included. You can't have 50 players and then 5 coaches. It's 50 total for that particular team, and 25 inside. And I'm not going to read all of this to you, but there will be hand sanitizer available at each entrance, each exit. There's disinfectant available to disinfect equipment after they work out. If one group is using the gym, say volleyball unit, as soon as volleyball's over with, that area has to be disinfected. Basketball comes in, they use it, it has to be disinfected afterwards. Even the equipment they use has to be disinfected. And we have all of that in place. Now, what the High School Athletic Association recommends is that they work in pods. Now, if you've got 25 players there, let's say they're going to work in pods of 5, okay? a group of 5 here, a group of 5 over there. That way, if somebody in that pod shows symptoms of COVID or actually tests positive, it only affects that pod of 5. It don't affect the entire 25. And everything's in place to take care of that if a player does show symptoms or test positive. And that last sheet there, you'll see those are the startup dates, the teams. And with cross-country going first and the volleyball. Now, at some point in time, the question will be asked and it'll have to be answered. Last board meeting, it was voted to go remote the second 9 weeks. That'll take us up to December the 18th, I think is that last day. Where we have cross-country and volleyball, swimming, and part of basketball will take place while we are remote learning. So at some point in time, we're gonna need your permission, need you to vote on whether to allow them to play games while we are remote learning. The state says you can, they leave it to the LEA to decide that. So that's our plans for the return to athletics. And I can answer any questions you may have at this time.
Mr. Gentry?
Ron, I have a question, and I think some of us have watched football on TV already. And you look at the sidelines, most of the players on the sidelines are wearing a mask. The coach staff's wearing a mask, but they're not on the field. And they're out there breathing in each other's faces and each other's sweat's getting all over them. I know we're in uncharted territory here, but is there any monitoring, or will there be any monitoring procedures in place to see how that's happening and what's coming from that?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I'll be out and about. All of the ADs have been informed that they need to make sure everything's going as planned. Coaches have to have masks on the entire time. Athletes, obviously, if they're running and participating, they cannot have a mask on. If they're standing around waiting to participate, they need to have a mask on. But the only time they will not have a mask on is if they're actually doing conditioning work. But yeah, it'll definitely be monitored. In a meeting with the ADs last Friday, what I told them was eyes will be on them. And if at any certain point in time we feel like that it's not safe, then we can shut it down.
Other questions?
There will be no physical contact throughout these workouts.
Simmons?
Since volleyball is gonna start back and basketball, are the fans gonna be allowed to come in, or is that gonna be up to the principal?
State has not released that yet. That's something they're still working on. And honestly, that's how our athletic programs survive, and they survive off of gate money. So if fans are not allowed to come in, that's something we'll have to look at. Yeah. With the plan they've set out, there's gonna be some overlapping seasons also. Volleyball will overlap basketball for about a week. But athletes can dual participate if they want to.
Jerome, this is just high school, 9 through 12, no middle school?
Correct. This is only high school. Middle school, we are hoping we can get them back in the building first of the year. We get them back in the building, we will have an athletic season sometime, 3 shortened seasons. They desperately, need it just like the high schools need. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Mr. Terry?
Who is the responsible person at each school to make sure that these rules are followed? Would that be the AD?
That'd be on the AD and the athletic trainers also. Thank you. Yeah, we have athletic trainers in place now, so that they'll be there the entire time. And we met with athletic trainers Friday with the ADs, and they were told, hey, at any point in time, you see anything not safe, you step in, you correct it, you take care of it. So they have the authority to do that also. It's like I told, I've seen athletic trainers in the summertime doing workouts, stop a football practice immediately. The coach didn't like it, wanted to mumble and grumble, but It was stopped at that point in time. So they have the authority to do that.
Any others?
The plan that we have in place, this is a plan that's circulating throughout the region. This is not just the plan that Robeson County is following. Hope County is following this. Wake County, Guilford County, Moore County. This is a plan that was put in place and shared throughout the region with ADs. And the ADs took it and tweaked it to fit their particular system. And it was a great, I mean, that's the relationships we have with AD. We share stuff and say, hey, look at this. I think this is going to be great. So yeah, this is a great plan for us.
Mr. Simmons?
Do we have enough, athletic trainers? I know one left or was leaving or something like that.
We do. Red Springs, they interviewed, 2 guys for Red Springs last week. And he'll be hired within the next 2 weeks. Now, what they're gonna do at the hospital is send one of the other trainers out to cover Red Springs until that trainer's hired. There's two or three trainers that work at the hospital in the clinic. They're gonna send one of those out to cover Red Springs. So everybody will be covered.
Okay.
Yes.
Ron, I know you and I talked the other week, but just for the general public to understand, the kids that have opted out, like football, and went somewhere to having football, they need to understand that they will not be able to play. Is that correct?
Correct. What we find, yeah, and what we knew all along is we have lost some athletes to South Carolina. We've lost some to some private schools. So if that athlete went to South Carolina to play football, they cannot come back in the spring and play football in North Carolina. The question we had to come up this week that we got some clarification on, which I really don't like it. We had one athlete to go to South Carolina. He played 2 games. For some reason, something happened. Well, he came back to his school here in Robeson County. So we told him, you're not eligible. You can't play. Well, we checked with the state. The state is allowing 7 games this year in football. So what we've been told with the state is he can play 5 games over here to give him his 7 games. So that we did get clarification on that. Now, if he went to South Carolina and played 7 games or 8 games, he can't come back to North Carolina and play.
And who's gonna monitor that once we get back in session? So
The ADs at the high school, they are aware of every athlete that left and went to private school or South Carolina. Every one of them's aware of it. Yeah.
Mr. Simmons?
But they can play like baseball, but just can't play at football, being they went over there.
Yeah, they can go to South Carolina and play football, come back to their regular school and play another sport. They just can't play that same sport. Correct.
Anyone else? Folks, we'd like to, we have some approval here with Mr. Freese, but I'd like for the board to look at approving this too. Do we have a motion to move this to an action item?
Motion to move to action item.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, could we have a motion to approve the plan as presented by Mr. Jerome Hunt?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Folks, the construction updates, if you remember about a month or so ago, we had Miss Bridget Chesham in, and she presented information about the needs-based grant. And that application was mailed off, I think, last Friday. And that was the grant that we were looking at $15 million. And then there's some matching funds. It was due in by this past Tuesday, yesterday, and should have notification by October whether we qualified or will be receiving that grant. And that's just an update on where it's at right now. So hopefully we'll know something by the next board meeting. And also, we're still looking, still having conversation with FEMA. So hopefully we will know something from them within maybe the next month. Okay? And before we go to closed session, many of you have been looking at the district conference that was virtual that we looked at, and hope you went all the way through. They gave 2 awards that were given to different school districts. There's a Gold Bell Award which is every member of the board has at least 12 hours worth of training. And that would have been last year, from July the 1st of 2019 till June 30th of this year. And then there's the Silver Bell Awards, which means every member of the board had some training. So we, as a school board last year, did receive our Silver Bell Award. So congratulations to all those that was on the board last year. And the challenge this year is let's everybody get at least 12 hours so we can get a Gold Bell Award. And you know, a lot of you already had to have training this year, so well on the way to getting 12 hours, and we have until June the 30th to get the 12 hours, so there's plenty of time left. Okay, Mr. Lawson, please do the honors.
All right. I move that the Board of Education for the Public Schools of Robeson County go into closed session for the purpose of discussing certified and classified personnel, North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1, and to consult the attorney retained by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the Board of Education for the Public Schools of Robeson County. North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A13.
Have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, folks, take about 5 minutes.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt all certified classified personnel as presented.
I make such motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Passed. Any comments? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if it's appropriate now to mention it or not, but I was made aware, and I probably should have mentioned this to Ms. DeFreeze, Superintendent DeFreeze, Lawrence Jenkins. He's got a position as a mechanical 2 at the bus garage. I understand he changes tires. That he hasn't been actively working for 3 years, and we can't get the uniforms and stuff stopped for him coming to the shop.
No.
Give me that information.
Just
and
get
I'll
that
check on it.
information.
Okay?
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Gentry?
Greg, I, like probably every other board member, has received at least one phone call, perhaps more than one, from parents and people in the community urging us to resume on-site instruction. And we have just heard informally of other cases where other systems have done that, and there now have COVID cases, multiple COVID cases. And I'm certainly not advocating that we do anything to change what the board has already done. However, I have talked with reliable medical personnel even today, and the information that I received is that the infection rate in Robertson County is now at 3%, and it is flatline. And I take that as improvement at this point. I know that can change, it can change tomorrow, but my point is, eventually, our desire and our certainty is that we are going to resume on-site and in the building instruction. And so my question, and at this point it's a rhetorical question, and I'm sure that there's work that has been done, will be done, on a concrete plan to resume on-site instruction. And if we are reasonable and prudent, in my mind, we will not, when the time comes, we will not start this full speed ahead, that it will be staggered in some kind of staggered form. I would also like to hear at some point, we've been in it long enough now, some feedback, and we don't need to do that tonight. But I think we're far enough now with the virtual instruction that we ought to be able to see and peruse some data about how, number one, the participation rate, and eventually, if not now, the effectiveness. So I know that's kind of a two-pronged situation, but looking forward, we're optimistic. I think we all are, that hopefully beginning next semester, we'll be able to start back, but we'll have to do it with caution, and we need to have a concrete plan ready to go at that time. I just want to get that off my chest.
If you want to respond, you want me to respond?
I'll respond just a bit. There is a re-entry plan for when we go back. The school nurse met with me this morning and yesterday and gave me a copy of the re-entry plan, and it is comprehensive. And it is an excellent plan for not only getting the students back safely, but keeping them safe. I talked with Dr. Parker, who is going to be working with me as a consultant, and his focus right now, I don't want to wait until December, I want to be sure that our custodians are trained in sanitizing these classrooms. We can go back, but if we open up, that place has to be sanitized, and we need to have the best equipment and solutions to do the job. We are looking back, Craig mentioned today, Governor Cooper gave some directions for Plan A. I've been reading that, and tomorrow we're going to start looking at our numbers. In fact, this week we were talking about I was going to give the board an update each week. Then I said, no, every 2 weeks about where we are with COVID. How do we look at a central office? How do we look at the schools? How many teachers have COVID? Or how many, and the staff here, and I think a committee was formed. And they have done a super job with contact tracing, all of this that's related to COVID. Craig, you want to say something?
Just with Ms. Gentry, what you're saying, there's ongoing work now to go back to school. Be it option A, the governor mentioned today, be it an A-B schedule. I know we approved to go back in January, but it's being looked at, and as soon as Mr. Freese says, as soon as we can look at that and continue to get all the data, things can change. A lot of this stuff is fluid, and not giving dates or nothing. I'm not here ready to do that by no means. I'm not the person to do that. But just so the public knows, since I know they're watching, we are constantly looking at options and what we can do to get back to school. And one other thing, we had talked about buses getting out to schools, adding a little extra with the Wi-Fi. And my understanding, hopefully all the buses will be out next week at schools. They've been equipped in those, so that will give hopefully a little more coverage out there than we've had with the virtual learning. So my understanding is all that will be out next week. And Mr. Gentry, I'm sure you're absolutely correct. We've all received information, emails, and texts concerning all this, but just know, folks, it is constantly a work in progress at this time. Mr. Terry?
I'm excited about going back to school. I'm sure that I've received numerous phone calls like everybody else. People want their kids back in school. However, I'm all about doing it right. So I want to make sure that when we do go back, that we're going back the right way in a safe manner for every constituent involved. But at the same time, right now, we're virtual. That's the hand that we're dealt. That's what we're dealing with. So during this time, I'm hopeful that teachers, administration, the board, and even us, board members and leaders here, I hope that we are doing all that we can to support the students in their situation as it stands. So if that has to do with training for teachers or administrators, whatever it takes, we've got to ensure that this instruction is being done the right way right now, because even when we do go back, there's going to be hurricanes, there's going to be situations where we have to cancel school or whatever for various reasons. So we're paying money for these online systems, even when we're face to face. So we need to develop this culture where we're ready to go either way.
Okay. Everybody good? Okay, Mr. Dwayne,
Motion to adjourn.
have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we adjourn, and Finance Committee will meet in about 2 or 3 minutes. If anybody wants to switch seats, the Finance Committee
item on the agenda was the CARES Act. Who's gonna handle that?
What we're going to do, Mr.
As far as technology committee, and we have these funding sources coming in for technology, including the CARES Act, so we had to formulate a technology team, which included Dr. Etta Baldwin, Jared, Mr. Bobby Locklear, Everett Teal, Erica Setzer, Jennifer Freeman, Dr. Lizzie Carr, Robert Locklear, myself. We formed the technology committee. And from the committee tonight, we have Ms. Jennifer Freeman, Erica Setzer, Bobby Locklear, Everett Teal. And Mr. Bobby, you gonna start?
Good evening, Chairman Smith, and fellow board members and committee members. What we done when we started this process a couple of weeks ago, we realized that there were a lot of different funding sources out there. So what we created, and I hope every board member has one, is a technology funding source for 2021. So we've listed all of the funding sources that have become available through either CARES and or state money or the Mountaineer money, anything that was new for this year in order for us to purchase devices. So we listed those budget codes, so we, and along with Ms. Erica, knew exactly where that money was coming from. We also listed the dollar amount, and we thought it was important to know when those dollars amounts needed to be spent. So you can see a lot of the CARES Act will carry over until September 21, but we do have some devices or some monies that will end in December of 20. And you also have devices on the back as well, or I'm sorry, not devices, budget sources, where we can allocate for different needs that we're gonna find or that may come up throughout the school year. And that's pretty much this document here, and I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Teal, and he's gonna explain the good stuff in the yellow.
Good evening, Chairman. Excuse me. Good evening, Chairman Lowry, Superintendent DeFreeze, board members. I guess it's all good news. If you look on this sheet, you see everything highlighted in yellow. You see it highlighted in yellow, that means he's actually secured, getting ready to purchase these items. The money has been secured for it. One of the big issues we have right now is with the hotspot. Right now, we have 400 that's coming in through AT&T. We should have another 425 that's coming in from Verizon. Now, the governor put out an initiative back here a couple of days called the North Carolina Student Connect Initiative. We had already put on board 4,186 with Verizon, but when he made that announcement, thing like that took precedence over everything else. They backed up on us, and right now we should have 5,483 hotspots coming in. Now, the ETA for those hotspots right now, folks, I can't give you a date, so I will be following back up the governor's office here shortly to figure out what's going on. I just got through talking to the vendor earlier today, so we start talking Mountaineer for the antennas. I just got all the quotes, and give me all the quotes in for 55. Really, it was 39 locations, but the money was enough for us to get 55 locations. When I say 55, we have 37 sites. I can build out from Hargrave, all your NIFs, which is non-instructional site like Healy Branch. You take a place like Healy Branch, you got the Boys and Girls Club down the street. I can take an antenna at Healy Branch and stretch it all the way over to the Boys and Girls Club. So now we're going from half a mile to almost 2.5 miles radius. With that being said, a lot of that work is done in-house because we're trying to do meticulous work and have strangers come in. It'll take a whole lot longer. We went back and did the work log. If my people do it in-house, we can probably get it done within probably about a month and a half. And if I bring strangers in, they'll probably take us 2 to 3 months because we have to stand beside them, walk them through them, put all the security codes. So my team is thoroughly capable of doing that. With that being said, that's all I have at this time. Any questions?
Any questions?
What's the total number of hotspots with those figures you were giving us? What was,
5,483.
okay.
That's coming from the governor's office. To be honest with you folks, that don't even include that don't include 500,000 that's still earmarked on this sheet because it came back and raised the incentives on us. And also with that being said, I got another 240,000 that's still be coming in from the, from Smithfield. We're one of 4 counties to, secure that kind of money. That's where the first 400 AT&T devices are coming from, then the other 425 remaining from Verizon. The problem with Verizon folks, I guess, when you release that kind of money for $10 million, they changed their pricing practice. It was like $15 a month, now all of a sudden it has gone through the roof, so they're trying to renegotiate with those guys. So that's really the holdup. That's not our team or the public school of Robertson County, it's the vendor. Any more questions?
Any other question?
Yes, sir.
Does the usage, look like on the bus sites? Are they being utilized quite a bit, or do you have any numbers on that?
Now, as far as the buses that haven't gone out yet, because we're trying to figure out one more security breach, but now we do have 2 of the Rangers that's been roaming around right now. I think probably by the middle of Friday, it should be good to go. We're one of 3 counties right now that's actually utilizing the buses, so we don't have a lot of preference to call someone to ask for a break fix or a know-how, so this has been actually implemented from scratch.
And to add to that, Mr. Terry, yesterday when the team met, what we also know and we're aware of that actually the buses will be getting ready to go out next week. Probably we're hoping by the latest next Tuesday. And Mr. Guzman is working very diligently with the principals and different team members to make that happen. So we're looking forward to that being executed by no later than Tuesday of next week. And that was updated for us yesterday.
Mr. Teal, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Teal, what's the projection on, anticipating receiving these hotspots, that 5483?
Well, according to the last email I had, Mr. Brewer, they still mean 5 to 10 business days. So if that email went out yesterday, so I'm thinking 5 to 10 business days from yesterday. So I'll try to follow back up with what they say in the email. Don't always matriculate what happens.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Steele.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Lowry, Superintendent DeFreeze, Chairman Smith, and board members. So I'm also going to talk a little bit more about CARES and technology. If you wanted to be here for 7 hours tonight to hear me talk about the budget, I don't plan on doing that. I hope to kind of use tonight as a gauge to understand what everyone's priority is and what areas you'd like me to focus on in our meetings. This is by no means are we asking for any of this to be approved tonight. This is a lot of information to digest. And I just kind of wanted to start with our funding sources and go from there, and then we can answer any questions or do any kind of procedure that anyone wants to suggest to me. But I wanted to start with this sheet that looks like this that says school allotment system. This is the revision that we get that shows all our state funding. So we're going to start with the state because it's Fund 1. Everything, when I talk about the dollars, always translates to a number. So if we'll start with that sheet, we get these around sometimes once every 2 weeks, sometimes twice a week. And this is how the state communicates with us and lets us know if our state dollars are changing. I know it's kind of small. I apologize for that. And as you can see, this one was just submitted to us on the 16th, which was yesterday. And anywhere you see revision, you see dollar amounts, like at transportation, there was an additional $22. That's a change. So we'll know to look for those numbers. And again, like I say, these come in weekly sometimes every 2 weeks. So as you can see, it breaks down all of our state funding by what we call Program Report Code, or PRC. We start with classroom teachers, and I'm not going to go down the list of everything, but all of these are grouped in categories. So like with classroom teachers, that is the only thing that we can pay for with those funds. is anybody in the classroom. It can be, PE teachers, math teachers, any kind of teacher in the classroom, but no librarians, no social workers, anybody. That's only for classroom teachers. That particular program is, positions. So it doesn't matter what that teacher's salary is, as long as we have the positions for it, the state will cover it regardless of what the salary is. So ideally, we use that allotment to pay our higher cost teachers and use those positions, and our newbies, we call our newer teachers, we put in our dollar allotments. And again, I'm not gonna go through all the lists, but as you'll see, this is what I use to base this budget document on. And it starts off with the state funds. If there's anywhere you wanted me to start, I had a request to focus on the COVID funds. So if you go to the last page of that same document, you will see like a snapshot of all the COVID funds we have received, not just for technology, but all areas. The deadline, the total amount, how much has been encumbered, how much has been spent, and how much is remaining. And then I just put some notes at the bottom to show the expectations or what we have planned on how to spend those funds. The first one on there, the 121, is what we call the Jump Start program that occurred over the summer. And you'll see we've already expended most of those funds, and that was for that program that focused on one-on-one instruction over the summer with children. So there was about, 150 teachers or more, Dr. Locklear, that were approved over the summer to work remotely, of course, not at any site. They were all remotely with individual students that needed a little extra help over the summer, and that's why it was called the Jump Start program. And I can explain any of these, go through them however you want. A lot of the technology that Mr. Teal, Mr. Bobby just discussed is included here. And we have those weekly meetings to discuss how we spend those. The student computers and devices and cybersecurity, you'll see we've already encumbered those total amounts. And we have a plan to spend all the other. I also included the CARES Act to show the total dollar amount, what we've encumbered and spent so far, but again, it has a longer cycle of life, so to speak. It doesn't end till September of next school year.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Ms. Erica,
Yes, ma'am.
on 125, school nutrition, you have a notation at the bottom.
Yes, ma'am.
You may not be able to spend all funds because you have to show a loss for normal expenses to be covered.
Yes, ma'am, and I'll elaborate on that.
Beg pardon?
I can elaborate on that.
Not too much, just give us a 2 sentence. Because I'm sitting here sort of confused
Okay.
that
so-
we had to take money out of the 900,000 you got the first of the year to pay for something in school nutrition. Now we may not be able to spend it all, but then we got to show a loss, so sort of enlighten me.
Okay, first ones that you're referring to was PRC 154. That was the first rounds of COVID funding that we got because of the emergency situation and how child nutrition had to convert from in-person feeding to total remote. And that money we used then did not have the same restriction. We could use that for any needs in child nutrition, any expenses we had. We didn't have to look at our child nutrition account to show a profit or loss. These 125 funds, DPI has instructed us that your child nutrition program has to be operating at a loss. So your revenue has to be less than your expenses. And they haven't clarified if that's on a month-to-month basis, if that's on a quarterly basis. But right now, we're still producing a profit in child nutrition. As long as we're producing a profit, we can't use these funds for quote-unquote normal expenditures like the food costs, the salaries for the people. What we can use it for is at things that we wouldn't normally do in child nutrition, like have bus routes to serve food. So we are using these funds to pay all of our drivers that are on the buses and handing out food to other people, but we can't use it to pay our child nutrition workers that are currently preparing the meals because we're still operating at a profit. And that's what that means in a nutshell. If we spend it and we're audited and we had a profit in that time, they'll say that those expenditures must be repaid. You can't use it to have an influx of cash in your child nutrition department. You can use it for abnormal expenses, or if you are operating at a loss, you can use it.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chair. What about, the bonus pay that you're going to pay?
That's the fund that I mentioned at the last, we will use that,
Uh,
125 for that payment.
Use your 125 out of
Yes,
that?
ma'am, because that is an abnormal payment. That is not something that we normally pay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the bonus for the other, not the cafeteria, the other
That will be paid out of 135.
135.
I'm
Cybersecurity.
sorry, 134, excuse me. The, low wealth, something,
Our low wealth, but that's not the real low wealth, that's.
no, they gave us our entire low wealth allocation. Then they reverted part of our low wealth money
The 31 money.
to the 31 money into this COVID low wealth money.
I'm with you now. Okay, I'm clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
So how are the child nutrition workers being paid? Out of their regular they're being paid their regular salary?
They're being paid out of their regular Fund 5 or Child Nutrition Fund. Yes, sir.
Just, Miss Erica, I've been questioning, and I'm sure other board members have too. When we mentioned last week or so in our monthly meeting about the monies, who is doing their time? Is it their direct supervisor? Who is sending this paper in? Are we asking for the employees to fill it out, or is the supervisor filling it out? Or, and who gets it to you?
Okay, so there's kind of maybe 3 levels to it. The first level was through Child Nutrition. Child Nutrition had a program in place. Anybody that worked directly with Child Nutrition, I got that information from Ms. Charlene. That includes all the child nutrition workers and anybody who might not have normally been in child nutrition, like TAs or those types, they were reported through Child Nutrition. Then I sent the employee list request to all principals, and I asked the principals to send me the list of their supervisors. Then I checked with each assistant superintendent on which of the supervisors in their individual departments they wanted me to send the list to, and those supervisors have received that list. And so far, I've received feedback from all the schools except one, and I'm waiting on 4 departments.
You waiting on what?
4 departments. They got it after the principals. That's the only reason why I just had to coordinate with the assistant superintendents to get those names.
And
We are not expecting the employees to submit that data, and if the employee has any questions, they should contact their supervisor and not me, because it came from their supervisor. I'm not making any determinations on who anyone worked except in my department in finance.
Are any of these funds being encumbered by private schools? I've seen some emails referring to that. So where are we with that?
So the private school allocation will be found in the CARES Act. So we set aside a little over $180,000 in the CARES Act. And Ms. Freeman and her team had to meet individually with those private schools to make the determination if they want to participate in this program or not. The problem we've been having, and I'm sure everyone has seen, is that how we calculate how much money they get has been a point that not everyone can agree on. The Department of Education says one thing, the state seems to say another thing, the law seems to say something else. So there's been a final ruling, and we're moving forward right now with determining exactly how much money the private schools, and what the issue is should the private schools get access to 100% of their students, or should they only get access to funds for their children that are in a poverty situation?
Like Title I.
Correct, like Title I. And that is the question that has been debated through the courts.
And let me share with you too, we just reached out to all the private schools today, and we've actually notified and personally spoke to each private school person today. And we have looked at actually looking at that poverty rate for them. And so we have actually sent an email out to them and spoke to them exactly the stipulations and the steps that we'll be taking. So we should have some confirmation in the next few days. Right now, we do have, initially, we had 6 takers of the private school funding. Today, when we reached out to one of our other private schools, they have just recently closed today, so we are now at 5. And so we will actually have conditional conversations with them. They will actually have to sign a confirmation sheet for them. We've had to start the process all over again from what was initially planned. But we are working forward, and we expect that we will have confirmation in the next few days. But we're about at the same range of funding as we were previously. So the money that we've allocated originally, around $180,000, it looks like we're going to be teetering somewhere between that already.
But the 180,000 will be the top, the
Yes.
top limit.
Yes, that is the max. When we actually did the first calculation, Eric and I worked very closely to that, and we actually did the calculation that NCDPI required us to do at that time. So we actually made that initial estimate, and we were on the money using that calculation. We worked very closely with Mr. Talbert Troy, who's at the Department of Public Instruction, who works with private school consultations through federal programs. So we've received guidance throughout the process from him.
And the issue at hand again was if we used a calculation that resulted in the private schools getting more than they were entitled to, the district could be on the hook to repay those funds if this ruling came out another way, and that's where we are in that process. All the private schools have to submit purchase orders and everything, just like they're one of our locations. We don't just send them a check for the total. They'll have to work with us through that as they order, just like any other location.
You say private school, Erica, are they all charter schools?
No charter schools. Charter schools are actually public schools. We are talking about true private schools, Antioch Christian.
We're talking about Highlander, Antioch, we have Mind and Soul, and we have multiple, Omega School, we have multiple chartered schools, but none of them are chartered at this time. We have Mount Zion.
Why do we have, why do we have to give to private schools? I knew.
It has always been a component of Title I, but normally with Title I, private schools did not want to participate because there's language that would restrict them from being able to use religious materials and partake in these funds. But that particular component is not a part of CARES Act. So they have been willing to participate because there's not dialogue that would make them or help in some ways control their academic part that they want to put out. There's no restriction.
And to summarize what we have when we've met with the private schools, because we went and met with each private school personally, we did not have to do that, but I felt it was in the district's best interest that we made a personal face-to-face visit. And what they are all interested in would actually be your PPE, your mask, your hand sanitizers, those areas that they wanted to receive assistance with. And the process that Erica has just described, we will oversee those purchase orders. I will approve those purchase orders. And they have to do a needs assessment, just like we have to do here in the district for our Title I. So we had to meet with them to find out what their needs were. They had to do an actual narrative with us, and then we reviewed it and had the same conversation. But we provide complete oversight. The money does not go to the private schools. But as Erica has said, Title I has always had to reach out to private schools because there were so many stipulations. Many of them have not been interested, but this was a different situation because COVID funding was being able to be offered to them at this time. And we still had one to decline today after we reached out to that particular one.
And all of the charter schools could apply for their own funding. I believe they did receive their own allocations of CARES Act, just like we did, because they are still considered public schools.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, I see all these dates here, and y'all done an outstanding job, Mr. Bobby and everybody. But Mr. Teal, my only request is make sure we spend all this money. And I always have a fear, there's something here says September 30th of 2021 on that CARES Act. I have a fear of money being taken away. And so as soon as things can be found that we can purchase, I don't want to wait till next September spending some of that unless we just absolutely have to. But Just get it spent and buy all the things that we can buy.
May be problematic, it's
Okay.
PRC 125.
Right.
Because we cannot spend those funds if we are in a profit.
Yeah, I understand that with the child nutrition.
That may have the possibility of not being spent.
Fine.
Chairman Lowry. What we've done is when we've worked with our team recently, the team members that Karen just described a few minutes ago, gave you their names. What we've done is we're applying for a waiver process. Erica can describe that more, so we can go ahead and begin the execution of those COVID funds that are actually to be encumbered by September of 2021. We have a plan. We've worked with the technology department, and so we're looking at moving forward. Right now, we're just waiting to get that waiver submitted and to get that next step. And Erica can explain to you if necessary why we chose to go into a waiver.
So the waiver is related to the procurement procedures that I mentioned before. We're dealing with the CARES Act, and CARES Act on this sheet is the only one that's federal funding. It has layers of procurement rules that the other state funds do not. And that's what Ms. Freeman is referring to. I'm working with Mr. Teal, making sure that waiver is in place, and that'll allow us to move forward with some of the larger purchases of the Chromebooks and the hotspots.
Banner?
I have a tendency to agree with Mr. Craig because I heard Betsy DeVos, the education secretary, I've heard our president say that, well, Betsy said that only 2% of the CARES money spent in the nation, they were looking for funding for something else. I think we need to spend it carefully to help our children, but we don't need to sit on it because I'm afraid somebody will snatch it away for another reason. That's just my opinion, just listening to the news.
Yeah.
Because they're searching for money.
Terry?
Right now, during the online learning situation, I'm sure that there's children that are feeling isolated. There's children that are having stress. They're stressed out, some of them, just trying to deal with the technology and trying to learn at the same time. So is there any way that we can use some of this funding for extra support in terms of counseling, in terms of just reaching out to make sure that our children have everything that they need emotionally and mentally during this time?
And I'm glad you brought that up. I don't normally speak of funding until it comes in on this sheet. Because until it's on this sheet, we don't have it. That's how I see it. So, but we are planning on getting, I believe, and I'm hoping for the PRC, I believe it's PRC 170 and 171 or 169 and 170 called GEAR. That is geared towards additional instructional support of all the groups that you just mentioned. That was part of the governor's group of COVID funds that he decided to allocate. So those funds are coming, and they are designed to add all of those support type positions you just mentioned.
And Mr. Terry and board members as well, Title IV, which Erica has not included on the sheet because federal funding has not dropped yet. We're in the final process of getting the evaluation completed, and we've just got a few things we need to tweak, and we're anticipating that should drop shortly. But with that being said, we anticipated with Title IV that mental health need, that social emotional learning need would be prevalent. So we've actually written in Title IV additional social workers as well as additional counselors as well. So we're very much in tune to the social emotional learning needs of the students. So we'll be gearing up with that along with some additional other support systems as well.
Thank you.
And as Ms. Freeman indicated, as you go through this budget document, you'll see several federal programs that all have zeros. That doesn't mean we're not getting those funds yet. It just means that we haven't gotten those approvals back from DPI. But we are working through all that process with all the Title I, Title II, Title IV, there's a lot of titles. And we have worked one-on-one, and we continue to have those updates. Moving forward, previously, as we got those updates, I would submit it to the board as purpose functions only. I will be submitting that now as I do all other amendments and list in detail. It will be a lot of pages, but I will list in detail once all those are approved, so you can see line item by line item with those federal programs. And that'll be, this budget document will change constantly. And as we do that, once this gets approved, whenever that is, at the next board meeting, hopefully, I'll bring amendments, probably every month because we just get those constant updates related to that.
Ms. Chair, this is my last comment. Miss Erica, let me tell you what I would like to see. This is me.
Okay,
And I don't know where you would put it.
okay,
You know, a lot of times when you present the monies you have, like it's the teacher code, I'd like to see somehow the number of teachers we've hired. Like you have the code there, like state teachers, and you can say we've hired 752 or 810 out of that category. Go down to 31, you've hired 56. That is vital to us because I know you allot so many, and I think that would keep everybody focused. You allotted 1,020.
right, so
You
the
hired
allotments are
56.
in here.
Okay,
So you want to see actually from what was allotted to how many are in place?
exactly.
Okay,
And I think that would give the board members, and instead of us running all of, me, I'm talking about me, I can't speak for other people. To me, that makes a lot of sense where I can see we don't have but so many in this position, especially state now. 31, I know you can go wherever you want to, but it would give us an idea. We're over and under, and we wouldn't get caught in that mess again.
yes, well, I can speak right now just on 001 because I looked at it, but we can bring that forward for all the programs. We have 30 positions available in 001. So, I think there's 1,007, and this past month we had 977 months were paid, something to that effect. So there's close to 30 positions still available for teachers, in 001 alone. But we'll do that comparison. But that's something that I check monthly with the months of employment to see. The months of employment are 001, your CTE 013, and your 007, which includes all the instructional positions.
Who else knows that besides you?
We talk about that as a cabinet, especially when we have a lot of vacancies. We all talk about that. They're all the areas, each of the assistant superintendents.
Mr. Gentry?
What are the barriers that are causing that gap between the ones that the numbers that we have allotted and the numbers we actually had? I thought I heard you say 30.
Yes, sir.
Why is there such a gap?
I don't know if I can answer that question. If I could, I think we would be able to feel it. COVID is a lot of reasons. A lot of people are leaving the profession of teaching. Before COVID, a lot of teachers didn't feel appreciated because of various reasons. So there was a decline in new people going to school to become teachers. Anything else you want to add, Miss Melissa? I think the climate right now as it stands with in and out of remote, hybrid, there's just a lot of things in education right now that people are leery of being teachers. And that trend has been occurring a lot over the last, say, 3 years. We actually have a sign-on bonus that we'll be implementing later once those funds drop to try to help get teachers here, at least for, I believe they'd have to sign on for a year. That's been a tool we've used that we've seen some positive results over the past, but for the most part, just the climate as a whole of the expectations of being a teacher in education, K-12 education at this point, and the COVID crisis have really caused a decline in people wanting to be in the teaching profession.
Anything else?
Again, I'm looking for some direction as to what everybody wants to see. If there's areas you want to focus, if you want to take this, look at it, everybody send me questions. You let me know what everybody wants to do, because I'm sure you don't want to sit here for another 3 hours and listen to me talk.
No.
Ms. Erica, I would think that we would, like Mr. Craig mentioned, deadlines that are coming up first, that we concentrate on using those funds, those 21 funds. Got more time with those, but like Dr. Emmanuel mentioned, we don't want to lose them either.
Yes, sir. That is the focus right now. We all are in various teams working on making sure, and those funds will be spent by any of those deadlines.
And if I could add, that was the purpose, Mr. Brewer, board members, for adding the sheet that you have tonight, is because we had numerous funding sources to make sure that we actually knew all of those funding sources, look at them at a glance, and then immediately look where we must go immediately and look at those funds based on the priorities of the district as well as the priorities of what the budget code would allow us to do. So we are very much in tune with that, and we agree with you 100% about those funding sources and not losing the money.
And you'll notice I put on there current COVID funds as of 9/17, because the expectation is we are going to get more money. The governor is releasing several initiatives, and DPI is processing that. So as I mentioned, money's for additional instructional. So you'll get this every month. I'll make this a part of my monthly financial report as well. And any funds that are added, I'll designate and show, and I'll update these totals every month, or every time we have a meeting, multiple times. That's why I dated it, because it will be changing constantly.
That encumbering funds equal to spending the funds, and I know CARES is something new, but now we encumber.
Encumbered means there's active purchase order. We haven't received.
You know, there are one or two things that really stand out. I mean, child or nutrition, that's not going away, obviously, and that's a high ticket item. So it seemed like it would behoove us to, single out the ones that are here to stay, like that one, and there's some others as well.
This particular child nutrition is going to expire in December. These funds, these are not part of our regular child nutrition funds. These will expire in December of 2020. These are the funds I mentioned that we cannot use them to support child nutrition as long as we're in a profit. As long as we're showing we're making money in our other funds for child nutrition, we cannot use these funds.
I would say EC, right there would
Sir?
strong. EC, the exceptional children.
Yes, sir. And that was actually a grant that the EC department applied for. We received those funds, and I've already worked with Ms. Burney and Ms. Sutton, and in this budget document, you'll see the breakdown of the EC funds, the 132. They're going to use it, and I've listed it here at the bottom. They're going to use it for supplies and materials and various EC contracted services, including speech, psychological services, and then other EC, OT, PT as they need fit.
Any other questions, comments? So based on what I'm hearing you say, Ms. Erica, you just want us to take this information
Yes, sir.
and act
Give
on,
me feedback on what, if we want to have another finance committee meeting prior to the board meeting. If anybody has any specific questions, I can answer as we go along. If there's a certain funding source you'd like to concentrate on and we have more time to focus on, I just need that direction to know the priorities as we see. Because again, we could talk about finance for days and days on
well, the
end.
main thing is we want some of these new board members. I mean, I've been here a long time and I still have a hard time, but I know some of these new fellas, the grasp of all this sometimes is encumbering, to be honest with you. So that's the main thing. We won't try to get everybody up to speed
Right.
best we can.
So I just wanted to break down all the funding sources in here. We have 7 funding sources. State funds, which is this report that I just went over. Local, which is Fund 2, you'll see in here that most of those funds come from our county commissioners. Our IEA grant is in local, our TC costs, you'll see all of that listed in this document. Federal funds, which cycle in and out from DPI. Most of those are renewed every year, but they do require us to submit grant information in every single school year. And it is not guaranteed, even though we have continued to get them in each year. Capital outlay is next, and that is where the board has the most discretion over the local and capital outlay budgets. Fund 5, 6, and 7 are your enterprise funds, which means that they operate like a business. They have to be able to sustain themselves and not receive any support from the state, the county, or the school district. And that's Child Nutrition Fund 5, Shining Stars Fund 6, and Primetime Fund 7, which we'll see a hit to Primetime because we haven't been able to have that program since the closure, so we're not collecting any fees there. But we don't have the expenses either. Those were a group of employees that we did not continue to pay through the pandemic, and we cannot pay until we are able to bring the students back and start getting those parent fees paid. That's a quick snapshot of all the funding sources, and you'll see all those breakdowns in here in that order.
Okay.
So will you need some approvals of the budget at the next meeting?
Yes,
So then where you're saying take this and look at it, if we have questions, and then it could be approved when we have our October meeting.
correct. Yes, sir.
And folks, let me add to, Mr. Chairman, and I know some of you have, but Miss Erica is glad if you ever want to come out here with one or two people, yourself or another board member, and sit down, she will take these sheets and go through them piece by piece,
Yes.
if you find her not doing anything.
That's one of the things to say, make sure she's got the.
Make sure she's got the time, but she will do it.
To everyone in Excel, if you kind of like Excel as much as I do, and you can sort it and group it however you see fit. It's easy to do on Excel.
Sure.
So I see that, we've got some funding here that's not necessarily encumbered right now, and I see the deadlines and all that. At the same, if we vote to go back to school or an AB schedule or something like that, we're gonna have to have some of this, some of this funding for whatever we need to open schools, correct?
Some of these items are geared directly to being able to be used in either environment. Like with the computers, we haven't really discussed, if we go to a hybrid schedule, the kids will still need to have their computer because they'll be at school some days, off others. So most of these items, especially with CARES Act, are geared to be in and out of either environment. And it is just good resources to have in case you're in either one. So the hope, we will have all of these funds spent by December, except for you.
Henry?
I'm just curious to know if if we have any input on this from like principals and staff.
For the COVID funds,
Yeah, as far as priority is what they need.
I really can't answer that question, me specifically. The other departments may be able to answer that. I know we've had the principals do various parent surveys to gauge the needs for hotspots, and we're working on surveys to go out there. And with the computers, of course, we worked one-on-one with all the locations to make sure they had all the devices they needed. Other than that, the summer learning program, that was confined to K4, so those principals were involved with the Jump Start program.
Let me add too, and there were also several documents developed that there were a whole list of people that involved, and in that document, you came with some of the recommendations were things you needed, like when they said you need to sanitize and da-da-da-da, with automatically, they gave you the concept where you needed to order supplies for that, which went back to the budget. So those documents were developed and had principals and central office and everybody in it. So I can answer that. For me, yes, they were involved in it.
And the principals with most of the PPE and the cleaning solutions and all those things, we mentioned before, there's a program we've had in place long before COVID called School Dudes, which is an inventory system. The principals have been using that all along, and that's how they're getting their cleaning supplies through Jimmy Mercer at purchasing. So,
Any other?
I would like to say, Miss Erica, I'm so glad you finally brought us some good, positive information. And we know it wasn't you. You know what I'm saying.
Right,
But anyway, but thank you for your hard work. And guys, she will be available. Y'all can set up an appointment with her and come talk to her anytime.
Would any of these funds cover like plexiglass or anything that we think we may need?
CARES Act, we have.
Okay.
I believe $5.6 million set aside to encompass any type of custodial cleaning, plexiglass,
Okay.
all of signage, all of the above.
That's in some of the plans, I saw it.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
Mike, I'll say this and be quiet. And you mentioned it then. There has been questions, and if it can get out to the principals about signage and stuff like, if they're gonna have amounts they could spend with this CARES Act, because I know they're in the process of ordering, and it would be nice if we could come up, or you can come up, whoever, and says, you have this amount to spend at your school, ever how you're looking at it, that where the signage and other things would look consistent throughout the county, and it would also look good throughout the county. So if, and I know CARES Act money can be used for that, but if we could make sure everybody is involved with doing that, I think that would be good. Now, I'll be quiet.
Let me just make a statement. Sometimes when I'm asking a question, I'm not really asking it for myself. I'm asking it because there's thousands of people that'll end up following up and on this and watching these videos. So I just wanted to make that statement. But also, just really need to and think about if we go back to school, we got to make sure that we plan for using these funds for opening these facilities. And it's, universal, district-wide markings on the floors and social distancing and that sort of thing. We've got to ensure that when we open back up, when we open that, I'm not going to say if, we'll say when we open back up, we've got a well-oiled machine, because everybody in the world is going to be ordering these products at the same time as us. So we got to make sure that we're on top of that.
Any other comments? Ms. Eric, you got anything else?
No, sir.
Ms. Jennifer?
No, sir.
Oh, good. Thank you. Y'all look over your budget between now and the meeting in October. It'll be on the agenda as an action item to address it. Okay?
And again, I did want to, I'm sorry, we said that it's a working document. It's not like it's presented at October and it's easy to change at any time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to adjourn to your finance committee. Anybody on the committee?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.